Okay, well, first of all, I want to welcome everybody to Katy. And this is our first track into the barrio of Katy. But, you know, one of our missions is to go all over town, which we've been doing. So here we are in Katy. Buenos dias y bienvenidos. Good morning and welcome to our August Menudo Club gathering. On behalf of your Menudo Club hosts, Andy Valadez, Carmen Cavazos, and myself, we are overwhelmed and overjoyed that so many of you care enough about our community to join us here on this beautiful Saturday morning in Katy. We will be discussing important community issues and look forward to even better discussions here today. We are living in a very momentous time politically, with a third indictment of a former president and a trial date set for our Texas Attorney General. We continue to see a two-tiered system of justice, no better exemplified than with the way the media treats or does not treat the Hunter Biden developments. We at the Menudo Club understand that it is time for major changes, and that is why we are here today, so that we can find ways to improve ourselves and our community through networking, information, and new partnerships. This coming week, I will be in our nation's capital for a front row seat view of all of the developments concerning our former president and offering my support wherever I can. Finally, a few housekeeping notes before we get started with our July lineup of speakers. I would like to inform everyone that our website is up and running at SaturdayMenudoClub.com. I encourage you to pull it up on your phones today, and Carmen, Andy, or myself will be glad to help you join the website if help is needed. Please note that we have a song playlist on our page, and if any of you would like to recommend some inspirational or uplifting songs, please let us know and we will add them to our website. I know that everyone is very excited to be here today, but please be kind and respectful of our speakers and try not to have conversations during their speeches. Please remember that if any of you are involved with any community organizations or nonprofits, please feel free to bring and display any materials on our welcome table. And we will be glad to display them here and to talk about them for you, or you can talk about your organizations yourself if you'd like. Finally, I remind you that here at the Menudo Club, we respect the importance of your positions in the community and jobs, and we do not require that you silence your phones. If you get an important call, please simply step outside and have your conversation. The one requirement Carmen, Andy, and myself have to each of you here today is that you continue inviting friends to our monthly Saturday Menudo Club, and please help our club and website grow. At last month's meeting, we were treated to a wonderful presentation by Scott Rice, who is a key advocate for the safety of children in our schools. Our keynote speaker today is a Houston native that attended Deer Park High School and is very familiar with our local crime situations. He is a former civil and criminal paralegal and is the owner of First Advantage Bail Bonds. He is also the president of the Professional Bondsmen of Harris County Association. It is with great pleasure that the Saturday Menudo Club presents to you Mr. Mario Garza.
Okay, so let me just start by saying thank you. I often go anywhere I can go to speak about this issue. Crime is a nonpartisan issue. I think I want everybody to be safe. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, this is the only unique thing about crime is that it goes across all kinds of political partisan lines. For me, I'm a bail bondsman. I've been in business 16 years. I've seen crime when a big city like Harris County, you're going to have crime. Naturally, there's going to be murder, but we didn't have murder like this 8 years ago, 10 years ago. We had about 137 murders in 2019. Last year we had 435 murders. So you kind of think about that. That's 36 murders a month, 9 murders a week. So when you think about those stats, that's how much it's grown. The powers that be will blame Harvey, they'll blame, the pandemic, but you have to know that this was started in 2017. There was a federal lawsuit filed, O'Donnell versus Harris County. I'm not going to get too much into that, only in that it focused on misdemeanor bail. The problem with that is that when you focus on misdemeanor bail and you say that it's not, that you're not going to hold people accountable for like property crimes, domestic violence, DWIs. It's like raising children. Think about it. You don't start addressing your children's problems when they tell big lies. You start addressing them when they tell little things, little lies. Like, hey, that's not correct. That's not right. Because that's when reform happens. Reform happens at the lowest level. But when you let them out and say, you know what, go home and we gave you this free bond and you're going to fix yourself, that just defies logic, basic common sense if you have children. Now, there are some people that are, they're going to say, well, not my baby, and, I didn't do anything, and there are those kind of parents. So you have to accept that that exists. That's why these policies have taken hold. Kim Ogg wrote a report. I'm a bondsman. I have a very wide perspective of crime. I've watched it be under control, and I've watched it go out of control. Now we're out of control. So you feel unsafe now. There's a reason why. You watch the news, there's murder, but she wrote a report. It was a 60-page report, and yes, she's a Democrat, but she's also the first DA to come out and say, this doesn't work, publicly. So, and I'm not going to read the whole report, it's too long, but here's the basic gist of it. 95% of the defendants reoffend within 1 year. Within 6 months, it's 119%. Within 90 days, it's 139%. So you have 139% reoffense, and that's what I was watching. I didn't know that number, but I knew the defendants were calling my office faster. And what you were finding is that they were out on a PR bond, and then 2 weeks later, they were doing something else. So I was like, wow, I'd never seen this before. Most defendants stayed out of trouble while they were out on bond. And then if they got a probation, they violated that, and then they got in trouble again. But the thing that you have to take away from what's being sold to the public is, number one, there are some false narratives. Number one, the PR bonds or the criminal justice reform is going to cut down on the jail population. It didn't do that. What do we have now? We have murders going on in the county jail, right? Okay, we had an overpopulated jail back before bail reform, but we didn't have the crime to go with it. So that's what's different. Now we got overpopulated jail with violent offenders killing other people and assaulting the jailers, and we got crime to go with it. Back 8 years ago, we had more or less, crime was kind of like this and public safety. Now we're like this. It's all crime and forget about public safety. So it's lopsided, and that's why we're here, because the public is scared. They're worried, but they don't know where it came from. And this is why I lay out the statistics. You're not crazy. The news is not reporting something that's making us scared. You have every reason to be afraid. But what do you do about it? Well, I've tried to talk with people on the left. I've tried to say, look, this defies logic. The worst part about what they dressed up under bail and criminal justice reform was it's supposed to only deal with misdemeanors. It didn't do that. They extended into felonies without any court order. Because O'Donnell was there was an injunction to let out misdemeanor defendants on bail, right? Then they filed a case called Russell versus Harris County, which was directed to let felons out. But that case is still pending. There is no injunction from any court. So how did you start letting felons out with no court order? You just did it and said, stop me. That's how that happened. So, when you start throwing things like that at people that say, well, look, I get it. But here's the part you're always going to have with the criminal justice system. How do you weigh due process rights of defendants with public safety? That should always be a factor. You can't always just say, well, first of all, no court ruled bail unconstitutional. Okay, that is a lie. That is another false narrative. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, all they said in O'Donnell was that a defendant had a right to have a hearing at 48 hours to determine bail. based on what they did. That was it. But the bail reform type people ran right out in the public and said, oh no, the Fifth Circuit ruled bail unconstitutional. Not true at all. Even, the Fifth Circuit actually said in their opinion, if you go read it, they said defendants do not have a right to be free from a wealth-based detention. That means they don't have a right to affordable bail. I go to bail hearings. I sit in courts when the defendant goes before the judge and they're going to get bail set. And the judges now are asking questions that are strange to me. Number one, they ask, well, how much bail can the defendant afford? That's not the question that it should be. Well, based on what he's done and a criminal history, then we determine bail. That's how it used to be. They say, Mario, what's the answer? Go back to the way it was. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some things that needed to be tweaked, like drug courts. I'm not against reforming people. But the sad part about it is that this got dressed up under something that was supposed to help blacks and Latinos, and we're the ones that are being victimized in our own neighborhoods. And nobody talks about that. Where do criminals go when they get out? They go back to their neighborhoods. It started to catch hold when, Bel Air and Westheimer and all these businesses started getting burglarized. And now people are like, what's going on? The Galleria. You're not safe anywhere. And the thing you have to know is that Houston is not unique. This is going on in major cities: New York, Chicago, LA, Houston, Atlanta. So these are people that got elected all over the country to do this purposely. So you're not crazy. So my job is to bring awareness. I deal with parents of murdered victims that meet at Crime Stoppers. I've been going for 2 years, every month, religiously. I deal with parents. I go to court with them. They invite me to go to court with them when you got murder cases that are taking over 4 years to get justice.
Horrible.
Yeah. So when you go to court with them, what I'm starting to see, and this is the other problem, is that the rise in crime, in criminal cases, you have to understand, we only had 30,000 criminal cases in 2019. We had like 150,000 now, well, as of last year. What does that do to the criminal justice system? It's going to break it. It's going to break unless the DA figures out what? I got to dismiss cases. Not because they're innocent, because I got to clear them. And the jail fills up because you can't push them out the front door faster than they're coming in the back. The reoffense rate. They're reoffending faster and faster and faster. You're trying to hurry up and push them out. What's the alternative? PR bonds. We can't wait for a bondsman to go bond them out, because that's what we do, the glue. There's a family dynamic in bail. If somebody gets arrested, they call their family. The family calls me. I say, look, you want to bond them out on the 10,000? I need somebody that's going to come co-sign for them. Because in an economic downturn, most people don't have collateral. They can't put their houses up because they don't own one. The cars depreciate so fast that they're not worth the amount of the bond. 95% of my bonds are written without collateral. But the thing to know about the bonding community is that we have an 8 to 10% failure to appear rate. You know what the failure to appear rate on free bonds? 82%. Why would anybody go to court if they were giving something free? Nobody signed, nobody paid anything. So they just say, well, I'm not going to go. Why do you think you're seeing that? You know what that means also? That translates into a high fugitive population. That means there's people walking around with warrants. Why do you think you see the high-speed chases? They're not going to pull over. They're wanted already. They're going to hit that gas, and they're going to wreck and kill somebody. That's why you're seeing that more. You notice you see 5 o'clock news, cops chasing somebody, you're seeing that more and more. That's not by accident. That's what's happening. I've spoken, they push back, they say I'm trying to scare people. There's a time when you should know when to be concerned. This is not fear-mongering. And just to give you a little context, I was raised a Democrat. I bought into that, even as an adult. But this is middle of the road for me, like going, guys, come on. They talk about gun violence with Republicans, but they don't talk about what they contribute by letting people out of jail on free bonds when they are a felon in possession of a weapon.
No bond.
No bond. And then to boot, they not only not charge him with felon in possession of a weapon, which is a felony, they charge him with unlawful carry, which is a misdemeanor. There's no gray area for felon in possession of a weapon. You're either a felon who shouldn't have a gun, or you're not a felon and you get the unlawful carry. So you see how all these things are done to minimize? DWI is $100 bond, free. So there's $100 there, but nobody pays it. There's domestic violence, women in this room who are beaten or abused by someone, $100 bond, free. So the thing that you have to know about what's being thrown at you is a violation of protective order. So if he goes back to the house, starts banging on your door, another PR bond, violation of protective order. So how are you supposed to feel safe? Car break-ins, this gun buyback crap with the city, with the mayor, that's just fencing. That's just a fencing for criminals who go, because they don't ask them any questions. Well, I'm gonna go steal a bunch of guns and just sell them back to the city, and they're gonna buy them off me. Because he's not asking any questions, right? You're contributing.
So you just show up with the gun and say, buy it back?
Yeah.
And they don't ask you they're not gonna ask you who you are. And these guys go around breaking their arms off, patting themselves on the back. They talk about the bail reform was supposed to save us money. They spent $100 million on expanding pretrial services. This is all meant to get rid of bail, cash bail. But as many of us know, accountability is the glue, right? In anything in life. But there's a segment of society that is being made to feel like they shouldn't have to pay for the things the rest of us pay for. I go to a store, I shouldn't have to pay for that, I should just steal it. Oh, you'll pay for it, because there should be a sign at Family Dollars now that say you pay more because they steal more. Because then what happens is things close. It runs businesses out of cities and communities. You talk about food deserts and no CVS's. Why does that happen? Because at some point they can't incur those losses anymore. They have to leave. So that's why I go out and I say, look, maybe I can't change what you're doing, but you certainly can't BS me. That's the minimum of what I can do. Maybe I can't change it, but the public's already, see, we're halfway to the argument now. The public is awake. They know things are bad. Now I'm just laying it out going, this is why. And if you want me to prove it, I'll prove it. But we have to quit.
Mario, who can help you? Who can assist? Or no, I don't mean you necessarily, but who can make the situation better? Who do you think?
Elections.
Fair elections.
I mean, right. Well, if you think about running out of paper, right? It kind of occurred to me, I'm like, God dang, because when I block walked last year, the public was afraid. And I go, these guys are going to lose, and they're going to lose big. Because the public had caught on. Then came the whole, we ran out of paper, and I'm like, well, no wonder you cheated. You had
only in Republican precincts.
Right.
They stay ahead,
right.
Always.
It was like, no wonder. You had to cheat because the public was upset. And it was crime. The number one issue is crime. Because nothing survives after that. Nothing. And then the thing you try to tell people is, I had some victim parents be mad at me because I'm a bondsman. They tried to pass a 10% rule, right? Remember that? Oh, you bondsmen are financing crime because you're doing payment plans. Well, we've always done them, and we didn't have crime like this. But they scapegoated us. Think about financing crime, since that's the term they like to use. Ain't no better financing deal than getting out of jail for free and pay me if you feel like it. Oh, and by the way, go to court if you want to. That's a better financing deal than anything we could ever do. So when they talk about financing crime, we didn't bail out everybody. I can turn down bonds and go, you know what? Looking at your criminal history, I can see where they didn't go to court. They're not a good risk for me. I can see that they got tendencies of violence, which was another thing that judges started to do. They started to ignore criminal history. You're treating repeat offenders like a first-time offender in a misdemeanor system. Well, he's got a bunch of felonies, but he got caught for this misdemeanor. We're going to let him out because it's not a felony. But that defies logic, because your criminal, it's like credit. Your credit has consequences. If you pay your bills late, you don't get to finance the car you want for the rate you want. That's crime. Your criminal history is your credit in bail. Let's just put it like that to give it to you simply. So what I'm advocating for is to be upset. I don't like to talk bad about Latinos. That's not my goal. But if they're selling me garbage, then you have to talk. Adrian, Lena, Rodney, these are the people that settled the O'Donnell settlement that allowed this all to happen. There's video there of me of talking that day, trying to convince them not to. Adrian tells me at the end, because my talking point was accountability and balance. He finished with, we feel this has accountability and balance. This was in 2019. Here we are 4 years later. I don't care about being right. I just want to be alive.
So the O'Donnell case is a court case, or it was settled out of court?
It was a federal case that was filed, and before it could go to trial, the Democratic sweep came, and the judges decided to settle it.
Which then, so it has no bearing on law.
Well, it's a consent decree. It became a consent decree, but the beauty of where we're at now is that there was another case filed in Dallas, Davis versus Dallas County. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals gave another opinion, which totally wrecks O'Donnell, actually voids it. Right. What they said is that the plaintiffs, which are criminals who were going to jail, they shouldn't have filed in federal court. They should have filed in state court. You should have gone through state court, and when you lost at the state level, then you appealed to the federal level. These guys just went in straight into federal court. So basically, O'Donnell should have never been filed anyway, which makes the consent decree void. But now everybody's rambling about what's the next step. How do we get rid of it? Because now they were hiding behind O'Donnell. Well, my hands are tied. I can't do what I want. A judge was like, I don't have discretion because O'Donnell tells me what I have to do. That's not true. The O'Donnell settlement and consent decree is falling apart. But what do? We file a motion to vacate. What do we do to get rid of it? So now, of course, the people in power want to hide behind it still and use it. That's why when you go to things where the judges talk, they say things like, well, my hands are tied. I can't do anything. What's the point of being a judge if you have no discretion? I mean, what's the point of sitting there going, hey, I'm looking at your record and I can't let you out on another bond. Bond should be set high enough to ensure that a defendant goes to court and returns. That's why bail has to be high as you commit more crime, because we want them to come back. Now we see why that's true, because on a $100 bail that's free, nobody goes to court. They're hiding numbers, they're skewing numbers. I got on some calls with people that I go, well, tell me about the failure to appear rate. Well, we really don't have that yet. Well, how would you not know that? Well, can you tell me that maybe it's 82%? Well, I'm not going to admit to that one way or the other. Well, your numbers are skewed. But I got the data from your district clerk's site. Because there are data mining applications now to data mine their own data. Remember the police union released a report last year saying that on some days, 100% failure to appear in misdemeanor courts? It's out there. We data mined that and gave it to them. And when they said it wasn't true, but that data mine from the district clerk, Marilyn Burgess's website, data mined it and got it all. That's your own data. Just put in a report. That's not true. So you have to wake up and say, well, what do I decide I'm going to believe? Crime is bad. You know it. I know it. It took us a while to get here. And I don't want bail reform to land on anybody's doorstep. I don't want anybody in this room to be dead or murdered or robbed. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, this is a non-partisan issue. But think about what the minority community, when you take somebody who's educated, like a Latino or a black judge, telling people who can't read stuff like that for themselves that your rights are being violated because you're being held in jail and forced to pay. They buy that. That's what they mouth off to me. Well, poor people are being held in jail. Not true. Kim Ogg said that. She said nobody's languishing in jail, especially on misdemeanors, because Bondsman bonded them out. Nobody was sitting in jail 10 years ago on that stuff. So I lay out facts, I lay out numbers, because I'm not writing on emotion, I'm writing on the rise. And what it does is it kills cities. Quality of life, children to play outside, people to ride their bikes in the neighborhood. It's just a basic no-brainer. You know, and I when I used to argue with judges on Facebook, they would talk about the law, and then I would say, well, what about what O'Donnell said and what the Fifth Circuit said about O'Donnell? No right to be free from wealth-based detention. Zero. Heard nothing.
Just keep copying and pasting it.
Right, and I had it already in a post. The Fifth Circuit also said you're not to do away with secured bail. That is us. We are security bail. You know why we're secure and why we have such a low level of forfeiture? Because when somebody doesn't go to court, I'm responsible for 100% of that bond. So if I bond somebody on $50,000 and I only charge $5,000, he doesn't go to court, I got 9 months to find him. If I don't find him in 9 months, I cut a check to the county for $50,000. And if I don't pay that money, they don't make due payment plans, mind you. If I don't pay that money, they pull my license until I pay that money. There are only 75 bonding companies in Harris County. We're the third largest county in the United States. So, you know, these are facts. This is not crazy conspiracy theory. Nothing. This is all fact. And I'll go anywhere, anytime, any place to tell anybody. I am not a political person who is here for votes. I'm here so that we can all live in a place. That's our right. In case people have forgotten that. Isn't it strange that they tell us how to live now? Hey, go to the bank, but the jugging that's going on. Be careful when you go to the bank. Look over your shoulder. We're being taught how to live like we're being hostages in our own city. Don't go over here anymore. Don't go out at this time. Learn how to live like this. Really? Now I'm being taught how to live like a hostage. Certain hours of the day where I can go and not do, and if I own a business and they steal a candy bar, just let it go. What does that do for our people, since that's the way it was dressed? Some people don't like for me to talk about race. The only reason why I talk about it is that's how this got dressed up. So if you're going to dress it up that way, then I'm going to address you on that matter of race. You're not helping us in the long run. You know, those activists that march out in the street with bullhorns and talk about due process and all that, I don't see them going to schools telling kids to behave. Stay out of gangs. Mind people. They used to do that, right?
They did.
DARE programs. Remember those? Yeah. Those were activists to me, not some loudmouth with a bullhorn riding off emotion and doesn't know what he's saying or her. We got to get back to that if we really care about our people like we say we do. Because go ahead.
Is it fair to say that the Democrats are suddenly in a big rush to get rid of Kim Hogg? Because I remember this guy decided to run against her, and it was like all we heard about on the news. Like they're pumping him up to get rid of her.
She got caught up in the whole Democratic problem. She was on bail with bail reform. She was on board with bail reform. And then somewhere along the way, she said, this is not good.
Yep.
And there's video of that. I mean, where she said, this is not, she went to the Commissioner's Court for more prosecutors, couldn't get that. Trying to get policed. And couldn't get that.
With Lena Dunham.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can see now, because in other counties across the United States, those prosecutors are not asking. They're not fighting with their powers to be, and their counties say we need more cops. They're like, oh yeah, you know, and then they put out these big lists of things they're not going to prosecute. She's having to deal with a system that's overrun with all the crime, with all the amount of cases, which is why, like I said, their only solution is to dismiss. But what does that do for a criminal? That emboldens him to go, see, I was dismissed. I've had clients tell me, well, yeah, why are you bringing that up? That case was dismissed. I'm like, not because you were innocent, because they're overburdened.
So Mario, would you suggest, or would you say that this problem could be fixable within a local level, like county commissioners, county judge, mayor, city council? Who would be responsible to make a positive impact on this?
As long as these people are in charge, it's mostly through your legislature. We had Senate Bill 6, which 2 years ago would have fixed overnight what we were having a problem with, but this is what they did with O'Donnell. They said, we don't have to listen to state law. We got a federal settlement that tells us we can do anything we want. They've been trying to deal with it at the legislative level. But when you got they're activist judges, that's why they call them that. Because when you get sworn in, you're swearing to the oath of the Constitution of Texas to say, I'm going to follow state law. They have totally ignored that.
So every branch of government is playing into this, because what I'm hearing is judges are interpreting or going on a federal level what the decree says, and then you're saying state legislators who can change the law but didn't, and then you have your county electors who, like your county judge and your commissioners. So everybody's playing a part in this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right, but they're fighting each other.
Okay.
So the law is clear. It's very clear, but it's who's going to follow it. That's what's so frustrating. I'm a paralegal. I'm a former paralegal. What I understood about the law was that there are things in the legal system that you don't always like, but you respect it because it's the law. If you don't like it, change it. The bonds, when they passed a 10% rule at the local level, that was the wrong place to do it, because the legislature has to do it. But Adrian Garcia got all the victims, and they started hollering at us and saying that, it's you guys. And I was like, and even some of the board members who are attorneys said, hey, you have to change this at the legislative level. You can't do it here. It's like price fixing. When the electric company wants to set a rate, that has to be set at the legislature. You can't do it like, I can't charge people in Harris County one rate and then go over to Fort Bend and charge them another. The rates are set by, it's regulation. Bondsmen are deregulated. We don't have a rate. We can charge 50% on a bond. We can charge 10%, determined on our risk. But I mean, that's a good question, because I'm out of answers. I'm out of answers because people won't talk to you. They attack you personally when they run out of argument. These numbers, again, what I'm saying has been going on for 6 years now. I've been in this fight.
The legislature did just pass a piece of legislation that says that local ordinance or local municipalities can't pass laws that differ with the state.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, but isn't it funny that that's always been...
I mean, it doesn't mean, with Harris County, it's not going to stop them. I mean,
Right.
and we're seeing that nationwide, right? That just because it's law, it doesn't stop them from doing what they're doing.
No, and when Senate Bill 6 went into play 2 years ago, they put something there that said that a judge has to review a person's criminal history before they set bail. Now, isn't that crazy that we had to pass a legislative bill to say that? That's common sense. But we had to and then they had to sign off, right? Saying that yes, I saw it. But they would just, I don't care. I see he's got a murder there somewhere. I'm going to sign it anyway and still do what I want. Yeah. That's all they did. It didn't stop that. Because they said, I'm going to sign it anyway. Because I would sit in court, and they would, when the person would get a bond set, the guy would have to sit in court so that the judge could sign off. So he would sit there and wait for the judge to sign off, saying, yeah, I saw his criminal history, but I'm still giving him a PR bond. And that's the other part of the problem, is not just PR bonds, but extremely low bonds. Remember the guy that got out for $1 bond? Yeah. Then went and started bothering the girl again? Because that's how they got around the zero bail. Remember when the pandemic happened and Lena was letting out everybody on $10 bonds, and then the governor issued an executive order saying you cannot let them out on PR bonds? What did they do? We'll give you a $10 bond. They got around that executive order by just saying we'll give you something so crazy like $1 and you'll still get out practically free. That's what they did with getting around the Senate Bill 6 issue.
Mario, one question I've been kind of struggling with very recently. I served on jury duty, and
This week,
Democrat judge found out I was conservative, and it caused me to start thinking, at least at the state level, the judges are affiliated with political parties.
Yes.
Judges are supposed to be fair and balanced, but how can they be independent if they're beholden to a party? The scales are already tipped one way or the other.
Sure.
Okay, so I have a case coming up on Tuesday in front of a Republican judge. I kind of like that too, but
Which court?
JP Court,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pro se plaintiff. But in a code of ethics for elected officials, federal judges are appointed.
Appointed, right, lifetime.
But state districts are
Election cycle, right.
elected. They're elected officials serving in the position, office of judges.
Yes.
Therefore, a code of ethics for elected officials would apply to them.
should apply to it.
And there is a judicial complaint board that allowed, but that has no teeth.
Or what that really is a code of conduct,
Sure,
which boils down to don't get caught doing these things,
sure.
as opposed to a code of ethics, which is we strive to achieve these virtues, like being honest, being fair, independent, transparent. I have, in case anybody's interested,
Yeah.
a proposed code of ethics for elected officials.
Sure.
There was a code in 1958 at the federal level that applied to all elected officials.
Sure.
State, federal, all. But since 1958, it's been watered down and turned into a code of conduct administered by what they call the Ethics Committee that has nothing to do with ethics anymore.
And
Because there is no code of ethics.
right, and what you're talking about is what we all agree, regardless of party, accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability to everybody, for everybody.
Do your job.
Right.
You're
Right.
supposed to be
Right.
fair.
Right. If I don't want that kind of accountability or that kind of scrutiny, then don't take the job. I mean, I don't want to do, people that run for office, my hat's off to you, seriously, because you're put in the public eye, you're attacked. There's hypocrisy. We talk about accountability, but yet the very people that are talking against you are the ones that are not even holding their own selves accountable. So what you're talking about is, yes, accountability at every level.
So the Ethics Committee is really backed by what they call an Ethics Council, which are...
Nice word, right? Ethics?
Yeah, I don't know how convenient.
Yeah, it's a very nice word, but
But it's a lot.
Yeah.
They've taken a good word and convinced people that it still means what it used to mean. But
Sure.
now they changed the meaning.
They changed the word.
well, but again,
Conduct.
that is a narrative. That is the number one thing which what you see with redefinition of terms. Non-violent. Okay, I was just explaining. Was it Rodney? Rodney?
Rodney.
I was explaining that they redefine the terms of nonviolent so much that now you could hit me in the head with a hammer, which is aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, by the way, and they'll say, well, we're going to call that simple assault. But I still got a hole in my head, you know?
From a hammer.
Right. And my brother and I got into an argument last year, and he choked me. My brother is an ex-addict, you know, blaming mom about everything. He's 40 years old, and I had enough. I said, dude, what has mom got to do with you being a bum and not working for 15 years? I mean, really, your son's got the same habits you got. Smoking weed in the garage and, you know, works when he feels like it. I mean, I held my brother to account. He got pissed. He jumped on me, started choking me in front of my mom. And then I called the cops. They arrest him. He gets a felony. He's been to jail before. So, you know, the DA calls me, and I kind of let loose on him. I was a little pissed off. I said, I don't have a lot of faith that you're going to hold him accountable. I called the cops because whatever, but I don't have a whole lot of faith that this is going to work out. Well, what would you like to happen to him? I said, I don't want him to go to prison, but I'd like for him to be on like a 4-year probation or something. Make him get a job, you know, like at least, right?
I like
That'd be cool, right? So she's like, well, we can do that. Well, come a year later, I thought they were going to dismiss it. That was my real fear. Man, these guys are going to dismiss it, let him go. He pled down to a Class A misdemeanor assault with time served. But because I know criminals and their behavior, this was in April. He caught 2 new cases in June. His son caught a case after he choked me 3 months after me and him got. So what I'm saying is that I know what, you ever heard the saying, you can't trust a criminal, but you can trust a criminal to be a criminal? That's what I do. I read those behaviors. That's why we told them, Lena and Adrian, that when you start letting people out of jail for free, they're gonna come back.
that's their plan, though.
Well, right, to break the system and then say, look, we fixed it. So they created a problem and then ran on, we want to make you safe. Not with the public not knowing, but you guys started it.
They have no intention of fixing it.
Right.
They really don't.
They got through their election, now we'll worry about that when we come up in another 4 years. In the meantime, the rest of us get slaughtered. And that is my passion and why I'm angry, because we can disagree on many things. Taxes, homeowners, taxes, whatever. You know, we can disagree on many things, but crime, I cannot compromise.
Before you sit down, I served on the grand jury last year for the fall term.
Oh yeah.
And the cases that we saw will make you cry. And there were just repeat offenders, which is called the recidivism rate in the criminal justice.
500% right now.
Yes. The detectives, the intake coordinators down at the jail, because we went on a little field trip across the street after we got out early one day. They are so infuriated because the policemen are trying to do their job, and when they do their job, they're attacked. The woke judges are saying, okay, well, we're going to make up for slavery by letting everyone out, people of color, which that's apples to oranges. It has nothing to do with anything. And I don't care about talking about race.
Good for you.
If that's what it is, we'll talk about it. And they can't call me a racist. They want to, but they can't.
We're their kryptonite. We're their
It
kryptonite.
doesn't stop them. They'll still call you racist.
And I've been called a whole lot of
Sellout, whitewashed. Yeah, I've been called all
You
that.
know who you are, that doesn't matter. Because if Trump can go through what he's going to do, I can take a few little name calls.
Sure.
So, but the thing is that you have to, if there's no accountability, if you can steal $999 worth of product out the store, you get a slap on the wrist. This is what's making us more and more at risk to being victims of crime.
Right.
And there are no victimless crimes, in my opinion.
Andy Kahn says
You have
that.
to be hard on crime. There has to be accountability. And without that, we have this lawlessness, what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to let people out and just letting them get away with crime, it's not helping them. And it's not helping us. When are we going to have anybody to stand up and say, it's for the citizens, the law-abiding citizens, and you need your guns because they're going to take them all away and then you won't be able to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. So don't fall for that either. But I think if we stick together as a party, and people like you, people of color, when you talk that way, they have to pay attention because they're just accustomed to us being Democrat. I've never been Democrat.
Right.
My mom has not either. But we believe in faith, family, and the rule of law. And by doing that, people are scared, just like you said. We need to bring that back, put that in the forefront, and then it will be nonpartisan, because if you can't get in your car and drive to the store, crime is completely taken over.
Right.
And without that, if we could get them on what we agree with and quit looking at what we disagree with, everybody wants to be safe. I think we can get those other voters. I know we can.
Well, no, absolutely. I think that's, look, with the way, from what I understand about the statistics in Harris County or in the city of Houston, is we're kind of evenly split, even with independents. So the independent vote is where it's going to matter.
Yes.
Because those are the people you can get. And if they're upset about crime, then the Republican ticket can win.
Yes.
Because, again, they bring back things of Johnny Holmes and Chuck Rosenthal and all the people that were going to death row and all this stuff. And I get that. Again, like I said, I'm not saying the system didn't need some tweaking. And just to give you that background, accountability is the glue in everything. Everything. Your job, your children, your, safety. Nothing works without it. And that's what I did for 16 years, was hold people accountable. When they don't follow my rules, I throw them in jail. I do. I go to the judge with an affidavit, surrender, saying, hey, Judge, he's not checking in anymore, stops answering our calls, changed his phone number, moved. Here, I don't want to be on this liability anymore. I'm done with him. But you're getting a lot of judges that are pushing back and denying our motions. Not only will they, what they're doing that's even more crazy? Is that they'll miss court, right, on me. I'm looking for them, kind of, because I let them get comfortable and settle. And then we go looking for them, because that's what they do. We give them about 3 months to go settle down with a girl somewhere, get an apartment, think everything's cool, and then we find them. They miss court, they don't go, the judge, he gets arrested, put back in jail, goes to court, and the judge reinstates the bond, my bond, without even asking me. I look him up and I'm like, he's back on my bond. Nobody called me and said, hey, they used to call us and say, Mr. Garza, do you want to be back on this guy's bond? Nope, no more. I got enough of this guy. They don't even call us. They just do it. They're playing with my money.
Right. You're a small business owner, and so that portion also bothers me, because part of this agenda is to put small businesses out of business.
There's a lot to cover, but I'm going to end it here. I'll give anybody my card. And if you want to collaborate on anything, or you got somewhere for me to speak, or you want the data that I got, it's yours. It's free.
Mario, you're the president, right,
of the Professional Bondsman of Harris County.
Do y'all meet somewhere monthly?
Yes.
And are people allowed to sit in and hear you?
Yes. I also sit on the Harris County Bail Bond Board. So that is a regulatory. And I don't know if y'all know anything about me, but you guys should know that last year I called out my own industry in front of Rodney Ellis on the news. I called out all 6 bonding companies that were ripping people off, because they were doing wrong too. And I caught a lot of heat for that, but I didn't care, because they were wrong. They shouldn't be taking people's money. That was when people were taking 3% down. It was a 3% problem, but the problem with what they were doing is they were taking 3% and then putting the person back in jail the next day when they wouldn't come up with the rest. So I'm going to end that. I'll give out my card, my number, and any way for y'all to contact me. And thank you again for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
Ya no más!